Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coffee Time. This is episode number 87. I am your host, Byron. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Coffee Time with Byron. Uh, Also, we are live on YouTube. Look it up at Coffee Time with Byron. Alongside me is former UFC fighter and amongst other promotions, Michael Guymon. Am I saying it right? Or Guymon? Which one?
Guymon. Guymon.
Perfect. Guymon. Okay. I knew it was one of them. So sorry if I got it wrong.
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
So let's hop right to it. I know we were talking before we got on. I want to get into it a little bit with you. A couple fighters that were really good in the sport, but they've had issues. Jon Jones. This is like I just recently got arrested again for the same stuff he's had in the past. Like we were talking about, what fixes this problem and what can Dana White do? And if not, what is Dana going to do? Is he going to just release him or what? Because I know he makes money for the sport. What's he got to do to try and change him?
Well, think about it. He's one of the big ticket draws, like him, Conor McGregor. John's going to go down as one of the best fighters that have done MMA. He's going to be one of the GOATs, right? He's beat all the who's who and just dominated them, absolutely dominated them. But, all his outside of the ring, his judgments he's made and the actions he's done is just absolutely terrible, absolutely despicable. But on the other side of the coin is, look, if you own the UFC and you're bringing in that many, you're selling that many tickets, that many pay-per-views, it's like, how do you get rid of that? How can you just exit out? It's hard to do. I could see where Dana's got his, got a problem with it, but I think in the end he should just cut him. Should cut him. I think a lot of other players feel the same way. It's like he's had multiple incidents, and they're not little incidents. They're big freaking incidents.
Big, huge. Yeah, they're huge. So I mean, I just don't get it. Why you're making all this money, you're doing what you love, you're one of the most talented fighters in the world, if not the best of this generation. I'm not going to say of all time, the greatest of all time, because it's different era, it goes by that. But you're one of the all-time great fighters, and you're just costing your life away for what? Like,
I think mainly it's all around drugs for him, right?
Yeah.
So, cocaine, drinking, driving, smashing that one freaking woman
in a club. Yeah.
Yeah. Just all that stuff. It's like just an addiction problem and something he needs help with. And obviously he needs a lot more help because he keeps going back to it. I know people that train with him in the gym, and what he says, preaching God, preaching this, preaching that, but then his actions saying exactly the opposite.
Yeah, say the opposite.
He's going this way with his words, but doing this way with his actions is like, come on, man. Why don't you just be real? You're a piece of shit.
And now let's talk about another one. Like you said, is a good guy. You shared a card, which we'll go into that fight a little bit later that you two were a part of on that pay-per-view. I know you didn't fight him, but you were a part of the pay-per-view with him. Yep. Cain Velasquez. I know he's like you said, a good guy, and I believe it too. I've heard interviews with him and all that. It's sad to see with what happened to him. Like you said, we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I mean, understand the situation, what he did, but you just don't go try and kill the person or shoot him like he did, because you're going to end up getting time, in which obviously he is. He's lucky he didn't kill the dude, because he'd obviously get life in prison for that if he did.
Yeah.
What do you make of that whole situation? Because you said you knew him personally at a level that he's a good guy.
I mean, I didn't know him super, super, super tight. We fought on the same card, and I was around him, met him. He's just a genuine guy, a super good dude, treated everybody right. Everybody around him, were the same kind of drive and stuff. but I think it's just emotionally he got caught in a really bad spot, so close to it. I look at it as myself with my brother-in-law getting murdered. Uh, my wife's brother, just got murdered, and you put that kid in the same room as me right now, I'd kill him. I hate to say it, but I'd kill him. I know he did it. I know he shot him in the head twice in the back. And if you put it in the same room, I have no problem taking that person off the planet. But he's not here, and I haven't done that, so I'm not going to go to jail or do any time. And just because I think it and say it doesn't mean anything's going to happen. But Kane, on the other hand, had the person obviously within his gun barrel and shot him and made that decision. And it just sucks because a lot of people, I think, would have that same emotional response.
Especially when involving a kid like that, if what is deed
Oh,
is true, what
yeah.
happened.
Yeah, if it's what is true, I think a lot of people would have that emotional response and have that first instinct of, I want to kill that person. I want to strangle him. I want to shoot him, whatever, right? Well,
Yeah.
that's what I think.
Yeah. So now I want to talk about this a cameo you made, I guess, since it says you're an actor, but I don't think so. Just because you
not
do one movie, yeah, because one movie you do one movie don't make you an actor. So tell us about that and how you got that role of being in the Hurt Business. What was that movie about?
That movie was about kind of like the ups and downs and what fighting life, the fight life, what it's like to be in the light and in the middle of it, and then also be on the way out of it, and what's life like after fighting. And so they used me as a good illustration of that, is because what I was able to do early on and where I came from. But then obviously you had to retire from fighting, sell the gym, do all that stuff, and what's that look like in the end? And so that's how it all came about.
So obviously you grew up watching the sport UFC. What ultimately got you wanting to be in the sport? Did you just love it, or was there a fighter you idolized the most that made you want to get into it? How'd that process go about when growing up?
Well, I saw it on TV. I saw the first pay-per-view, saw the fights, and was just thinking to myself, like, man, the respect I had to those guys in there competing, like modern day gladiators. You look in there and you're like, man, I want to have that much heart. I want to have that much. They're skilled.
Mm-hmm.
B, you just know like that heart and the courage it takes to get in there and walk in there and actually do that in front of everybody and compete. Someone actually they're trying to take your head off and you're trying to take their head off. I just looked at that as something was like, man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could have that much heart and courage and also have that skill, that athleticism. I had natural athleticism with, baseball, football, basketball, any sport I played, did really well at.
Mm-hmm.
And when I left the, baseball was, where I was looking to make my money, ended up walking away from that and just kind of rolled into fighting.
Now, did you have a fighter growing up that you watched though that you liked?
Obviously the Gracies, but then there was, like Tank and Chuck and all these guys I looked at. It was just like, wow, I want to be that guy.
Now, before we get into your fights, I got to ask you about that since you just brought that up. This day and age compared to that day and age when you were growing up and I grew up watching it with those kind of fighters like Ortiz, Shamrock, all that. I don't like the way that I know they want to protect the fighters nowadays. I kind of like it was the way it was better in the old days, don't you? I mean, don't you think Dana has kind of babied it?
Yeah, well, you got to package it so it's a little bit more user friendly for the mass population. For the hardcore people, yeah, we want to go kind of back to that, like let the fight go a little bit longer. Because you've seen some fights of late too that have been really good fights, and should you have stopped it that early?
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen some early stoppages of some really good fights that were, on paper, but then it just sucks when you can't really get a full scope of what that fight looks like. But yeah, I would like to have it a little bit more, clear cut.
And I also now got to ask you about rivalries too. I mean, yeah, you still have some, but that's more entertainment purposes nowadays compared to the early days when they actually hated each other
Yeah,
until
they
they
hated
actually
each other.
fought
Yeah,
until they fought in the ring and respected each other.
yeah.
I miss that kind of age, don't you? Now it's like, yeah, yes, they still have where they talk crap about each other, but it's all in good time entertainment. They already
Yeah.
respect each other
And
before
behind the
going.
scenes, they're like, "Hey, man, that was good."
Exactly. Now
Yeah.
they still respect each other before fighting. Don't you miss those days when it was like before back?
Although I think Covington and Masvidal really genuinely do not like each other.
Okay, besides that one, yeah, I agree. I agree with that one. Yeah, they
And
don't.
then Connor, he's good at creating those, but I think him, it's just all talk. It's all talk. I think he actually he's a good dude, and he doesn't want to be such a pompous idiot. But yeah, he's good at starting those kind of things.
He's got the more long life of WWE, where he's probably going
Yeah,
to go.
yeah. Well, he's smart. He's making money doing it, so can't freaking bash him for it.
No, very true. You're right on that. You're right on that. Um, so now let's talk about a little bit about the sport itself. Now, I've watched it since day one. And to this day, I'm still a little bit confused on it. Honestly, I am. No, nothing against it. I respect it. I respect what
What
you guys.
part?
I just don't understand the whole like. I just don't understand like the whole the submissions part. It was like some moves of submissions look like nothing's being done, and I just somewhat
Have you rolled? Have you done any jiu-jitsu?
no, I
Oh,
haven't.
see, that's where it's at, man. Ah, see, jiu-jitsu, it looks like, oh yeah, why would you tap to that? But when you get put into it and you actually feel what these holds feel like, or some of these chokes look like, or
Mm-hmm.
feel like when you're in them, it's yeah, you gotta tap, man. And if you tap or snap, take your pick.
Yeah, you obviously. I saw you're an expert in all three: jujitsu,
Yeah,
Muay
there's
Thai, and kickboxing.
kickboxing,
So,
wrestling, all that stuff. Yeah.
so you obviously excelled in and obviously you had a good fight record, but that obviously helped you in the end, didn't it? In your fights, you had
Yeah,
you
you
won
have to.
all
When
those.
you look at the evolution of martial arts, right? The mixed martial arts. You had a lot of people like look at Gracie. He dominated. He was
Yes. Yeah.
one dimensional. He
Yeah.
was one dimensional, but he was so dominant at that one dimension. He overtook everybody, right? He was winning
Yeah.
everything. He was
Yeah.
getting the championships. He was top of the top. But then guys started figuring out how to wrestle and prevent the takedown, and now it forced them to start the jiu-jitsu guys learning how to strike to build up that side of their repertoire, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it's just you start off one dimensional, two dimensional, three dimensional, and that's where you're at now. Today is you got the guys that are all three. They've been wrestling, they've been doing striking, and they've been doing jiu-jitsu. In the beginning, it was just jiu-jitsu, it was just wrestling, it was just striking. And blending the two together. And I was in the blending of the two. I was a striker that learned how to do some jujitsu and learn
Mm-hmm.
wrestling along the way. Uh, Unfortunately, I wish I would have wrestled early on. I wish I would have done jujitsu early on. It would have made me a much better fighter. But then life's not perfect, and I grew up in that time, and that was then, and I did well then. And now it's a completely different time. I see the kids in the gym. I still train, still do jujitsu. I do jujitsu a lot more than I do striking. I can't remember the last time I hit pads because I can't use my right arm too well.
Right.
But the kids now in the room, and it's just amazing. You have 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. They're literally stringing their striking to their wrestling to their jiu-jitsu together like flawlessly. And it's yeah, I'm actually kind of scared of kids now.
Now, before we get into actually your fights, I got to ask you, do you know anything about the leader of American Top Team, Dan Lambert?
No, I don't know much about him at all.
Because I don't know if you've noticed this lately, but it seems like wrestling is trying to get more involved with MMA or something because he brought his American Top Team guys, Masvidal, Paige Van Paige Van Zant, I think is her name.
Yeah.
Um, uh, what's the American Pitbull, Andre Arlovsky, and Junior Dos Santos. They all fought at a pay-per-view just recently.
Yeah.
It's like, what I don't I get you want to try and promote something,
Yeah.
but isn't that kind of taken away from MMA a little bit, don't you think, by trying to cross brands with something that's just entertainment purposes? Don't
Yeah.
I don't get that. Do you?
Yeah. No, I don't. What did he do? Like, he just threw an event with, what did they do in the event?
He had him in the promotion he was in called AEW.
Yeah.
He worked with Tony Khan to promote it, to promote the fight. It
Yeah.
was two wrestlers that are signed with AEW that are signed with, I guess, American Top Team,
Yeah.
that are wrestlers, and he brought like 4 or 5 of his MMAers that are still fighting.
Yeah.
And one Paige Van Zant just signed an
Yeah.
AEW contract, and they fought in a tag team match against actual wrestlers. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't buy it.
So
Got it.
don't you think that I get you're trying to promote something, but in its entertainment purposes, I get that,
Yeah.
but that's kind of making a mockery out of MMA, don't you think, a little bit?
I don't know. I don't know. It's not necessarily. Now, did they fight MMA rules?
No, no,
What rules did they fight?
just regular wrestling rules, which is
Oh, yeah, that is making a mockery of MMA.
yeah, which
Well,
is entertainment
making a
purpose.
mockery of MMA fighters, not of MMA, because that's not MMA. That's wrestling,
Yeah,
in my opinion. Uh, but yeah, I think it's just, yeah, it doesn't sound too intelligent in my opinion.
no, and he's still in it to he like I said, they just signed. He just signed with just had Van Zant sign with the company. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. So
So what?
how are they making money? Obviously on their pay-per-views, right?
Yeah,
I don't see that making a lot of pay-per-views.
no, I don't. I agree with you on that. So you had let's get into your fights now. In '99, you had your first professional fight against
Oh
Zach
yeah,
Turnage.
yeah,
Yep. So take us through that fight because it says right here, ended in a draw after let's see, you had 3
you beat
5-minute
the
rounds
crap
and
out
ended in a draw.
of me.
Yeah. So take us through that fight and what do you remember about
That,
that
first of all,
fight?
that was a long freaking time ago. That was in '99. What year are we in?
Yeah, that was
2022.
your first ever fight.
Yeah, that was remember I said I was a striker that learned how
Yeah.
to do jiu-jitsu, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, started with training with Chris Brennan, uh, buddy got Rob, not Emerson. Anyway, a guy named Rob got me into with Chris, got me over there, sold me on jiu-jitsu, and here's a striker going to do jiu-jitsu. I got my ass kicked by everybody in there.
Mhm.
On the when we would stand up, obviously I would beat up everybody there. I would help them on stand up. They helped me on my wrestling and jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Guys I'd go over and follow them and support them at their fights. You have the people you train with, they go out to a fight. You're like, oh yeah, you want to go support them. You drive out and you're out there in the stands and rooting for them and maybe cornering them, stuff like that. And then one day, this guy dropped out of a fight. And they're like, dude, your stuff, you got your stuff, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, why don't you just jump in, take the spot, fill the spot, and beat the crap out of this guy, make some money. And it wasn't like any crazy money. It was like freaking $25. And so yeah, I jumped in against this jujitsu guy, and here's a striker, and I beat the crap out of this guy on the feet. But then he would take me down, and fucking crawl over me like a little spider and beat me silly. And I had good cardio. I was strong. I was just athletic and just wore me down. But then we stand back up. I'd beat the crap out of him and start that whole thing over. And he lasted my freaking. He weathered that storm, and I weathered his storm on the ground. And we looked at each other at the end of the fight. Referee put both our hands up. We're like, "Fuck him, give me a hug." That was a good fight.
Now, I know ultimately it ended in a draw, but in your heart, do you honestly think you won your first fight?
No. I mean, I'm too brutally honest. I beat him on the feet. He beat me on the ground. I think it was even control on the feet, even control time on the ground. It was like half the fight was on the feet, half the fight was on the ground. And when it was on the ground, it was all him. When it was on the feet, it was all me. So it's like, it just depends on who you are. If it was on damage, I definitely won the fight. Like, that's one thing, you know what? That's one thing I miss about Pride. Pride, they actually kind of scored too on damage, who's the effective, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think they should take that into account. If you were to score the fight on that and what I looked like after the fight versus what he looked like after the fight, you'd be like, yep, I won.
Did you ever have a chance to, before we get back in your fights, did you ever have a chance to get offered to go to Pride before?
No, I never did. That was, you know what? When in my fighting career, it's like almost 14 years. That was one of the places I really wanted to go, was fight in Japan. I just never got a chance to do it. I really wanted to fight there because here you hear people, what they say, like, take my first fight, for example. Get a room. Oh, stop hugging him. Beat the shit out of him. Like, you hear that and you're like, I'm 10 minutes into this fight, looking at like, what the fuck is this guy seeing in the crowd over here? Well, first of all, it's 10-minute round, and I'm so tired in the middle of like the second round. I'm listening to what guys are saying in the audience, and they're saying shit like that. Whereas in Japan, Pride, you don't hear anybody saying comments like that. Nobody does.
That's because they understand it. The fans understand it more than we did.
And they understand the little nuances, like little position changes. You'll hear them like, ooh, ah, like you'll hear the crowd get excited. Whereas here, I still feel like even the fans are still not educated enough to know these little nuances in the fight and how important.
For instance.
Yeah. And in Japan, that's where I feel like they get it. And they got it from the very beginning. You look back at Rings and Shuto and Pride, all the fans, very respectful. And I wanted to fight there. And that's something I really, really feel like I missed out on.
So what happened with that then? Do you think your agent just didn't want you to go over there?
No,
or what happened?
Well, we were new. Like, it really didn't have an agent. I didn't have a manager. It was, Chris Brennan would help get me fights, and he'd get me fights. He'd give me a name, and let's go to town. Let's go fight this guy. And then when I left Chris's place, I was just myself, and I just worked with a couple of the promoters around in the area, got fights, didn't turn anybody down, just took the fights, and let's do it. And did well for the most part. I did really well in the King of the Cage.
Yep, I was just about to ask you that.
I did really well in that promotion, and that's where I got picked up by UFC, and got in there, got to my dream. That was my dream in the very beginning, because I saw the UFC on TV. It's like, man, I want to be that guy. I want to make it to the UFC. I want to fight in the UFC. And this is coming from a kid that lives in Irvine, the main streets of Irvine.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, since you just mentioned King of the Cage, you won 2 fights before the matchmaker for them noticed you, and you took on, I guess it looked like they offered you a fight against Diego Sanchez, and you took also another UFC guy.
Yeah, Diego's a good kid.
Fight and lost by armbar submission. Tell us about that fight. What happened there? It looks like you lost in 3 seconds left in the first round. What happened there?
Oh my God, I almost kicked his head off. I knew he was going to shoot. I knew he did not want to stand up with me from the get go. And I was just like, all right, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. This little guy's going to shoot. And then sure enough, I threw the right tie kick, but just like scraped his head. He got in on me. And dude, Diego's tough, man.
Yes,
He
he is.
just relentless on top with his
I believe
pressure.
he's still fighting, isn't he, in the UFC? Isn't he still fighting? I
I
think.
hope not. I hope not. The guy needs to not fight. He needs to segue into some other part of his life and find a new, a new identity. I
Yeah,
think a lot of these fighters are having that problem. That's why you see them still fighting when they shouldn't be fighting.
because like you
And
said, you were kicking his ass, and then he
no,
got you.
I didn't kick his ass. I got one good shot in and missed my shot. And he took me down, wore me out, got me in an armbar. And at that time, I was part of the tap out crew. And
Mhm.
after that fight, I'm like, Charles, Dan, Scrape, sponsor that freaking kid. He's going to be really good.
Uh-huh.
And we sponsored him, and obviously he did really well. He's an amazing fighter, and he's probably the most psychologically tough guy I've ever fought. Or yeah, for sure. Psychologically, that guy just is.
Now, your next 4 fights in the King of the Cage promotion, you all won them by submission. Now,
Mhm.
tell us, who were your 4 opponents that you faced, and how did you win them? What did you win them with by submission, and what rounds?
Oh, shit. I don't know. I don't even know. Let's see. Who was the first one? I gotta look myself up.
All good, all good. Yeah, because
Uh,
it's not telling me here. It just says you fought 4 fights
Sure Dog.
after
Sure
that
Dog. Where
one.
we at? All right, I'm going to Sure Dog. Sure Dog's like my go-to for. I'm still old school like that. Let's see. Wins, losses. All right. So let's see. Pat Healy. Well, actually, Pat Healy was in the IFL, but I strung in 5 wins in a row with King of the Cage there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, a couple of the guys were, so-so. They're tough guys. I don't want to name their names, but Anthony Lapsley, he made it to the UFC. He's a very gifted fighter. Casey Uscola, he I think was Ultimate Fighter. He was on there, and then Quinn Mulhern, who I think made it to the UFC as well. Those 3 guys, Lapsley scared me. He's the one where I won my world title, my title with King of the Cage. It was at welterweight, and he beat a friend of mine that I was his name, Aaron Witherspoon. Aaron Witherspoon at Timo Yama. He's welterweight, tough kid, super strong, super athletic. I mass respect to him. And I saw him fight Anthony Lapsley, and they had a double knockout.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a fluke thing. So they ran it back. And when they ran it back, I saw Lapsley just tool Aaron. And I'm like, oh, shit. And I was next in line to fight for the title. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, damn, he just freaking smashed Aaron. And that's the guy I got to fight. And I was a little worried about it. But I looked at it a different way. I took my cardio to a whole nother level, and I used cycling to do that. And I still
Right.
do that to this day, still cycling to stay in shape. But I use cycling to really, really push myself so I could put 3 hours of crazy power out with my legs, the wattage. I could just put watts out. And my plan was just to take that kid into the longer rounds and the deep rounds 4 and 5. And
Mm-hmm.
this also my first time fighting championship 5, where you're going to have 4 rounds and 5 round, competition there. And it worked perfectly, because when I fought Anthony, like, I got the kid's tough, a beast. First round, he had me the first round. Second round was kind of even, but then it was the third round I started pulling out, and then fourth round just really put it on him, and then fifth round I just did whatever I want. I I remember between rounds, between 4 and 5, I'm standing there hopping around like ready to go, going into the 5th round, like, yeah, let's do this. And he's looking at me across the cage like, you gotta do it. Yeah, so but that was Anthony. The next fight was when I was going through a really hard time in my life. Things were
Yeah, I
not the
see that. Thank God you got out of it. I see
yeah,
what happened there. Yeah,
you
thank
see
God.
that, yeah. And I was going through a really hard time in my life. Just
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, you don't have to get into it. I understand.
Oh no, it's all right. It's like that was part of the Hurt Business. They documented that and they went through that the whole period of my life. And a lot of people still reach out to me to this day, believe it or not. People still reach out to me from around the world, other continents that speak English, and like, hey, how did you get through this? How do you cope with depression? How do you do this? How do you do that? And I
Right.
love helping people out with that and sharing my story. If that could help someone get through that moment in life when they're that low and that down and dark in that place, all for it. It's a terrible place to be, and if I could help you out of it, that's what I'm about. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I'm
that
glad you managed to get out of it. I'm just
yeah,
happy you managed to get out of it.
yeah. So that fight, I had three fights, three fighters pull out of a fight with me. I'll
Mhm.
never forget this training session. In one training session, this happened, and it was at my own gym in Lake Forest, and I'm with Justin Levins. I'm with all these guys. We're training, and man, actually no, Justin wasn't around at that time. Just got a call. This guy backed out of the fight. I'm like, fuck. Training. I'm like, now I'm starting to figure out, well, what am I training for? Am I training for a wrestler? Am I training for a striker? Am I training?
Right.
And this is back before it's like, people are well rounded like it is now today. Because back
Right.
then people had a tendency here or there, right? And
Right.
so now I start training blindly. 15 minutes later, that guy backed out of the fight. Another guy calls up, yeah, got this fighter for you. So then I start mentally preparing for that guy. By the end of the training session, that guy pulls out, and I was trying to hold back the tears in my eyes, just the frustrations, life, uh, business, running the gym, owning your gym, teaching the classes, training the fighters, then getting yourself ready for fights on top of home life, being married, all those issues. It was just too much. Didn't know how to cope with it. And after that fight is when I had like a meltdown. And yeah, that's when I tried to commit suicide. And uh, thankfully, my wife and some friends were able to steer me away from that. Had some friends from the sheriff's department help me out and got me to a better place. And then it took me actually into the Quinn Mulhern fight. And I felt so terrible for that kid going into that fight.
Yeah, because I see that's where you won the welterweight title before going in the UFC.
Yeah, well, so that was defending my title because I won it with Lapsley. What's his name? Casey couldn't make weight, so we fought at a catch weight, and he was a big freaking guy compared to me, and ended up KOing him or TKOing him. But then Mulhern, he got me when I went through all of that shit, like the suicide, the attempt. Obviously, I didn't commit the suicide because I'm here with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I felt just psychologically so unbeatable. Like nothing could break me.
Mm-hmm.
This kid, there's nothing he could do to break me. I don't care what he does. And I'm just looking at him, just going, I feel terrible. And I told him, I'm like, I feel bad for you. And I wasn't talking shit. I never talked shit to any of my fighters. I never badmouthed them, never tried to run it up, never the Conor McGregor thing, not me.
Right,
Very
right.
cool. And I think a lot of the other fighters picked up on that and they didn't do that to me as well. So I never got into that kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
And I just Cole, I'm like, I feel terrible for you, but you're not gonna like me the next day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because after you defended your title, which by the way, before I get into that, I gotta ask you, after you had that title and you won it, did you ever have another chance to go after another title? Either you
No, no. When let's see, I got the title, backed it up, defended it, then got in the UFC. Didn't have any success in the UFC. I got one victory in the UFC. Unfortunately, I fought with performance decreasing drugs. Most guys do it the other way. They do performance enhancing drugs
right,
to
right,
help give them an edge. I thought it'd be a brilliant idea to fight on performance decreasing drugs, mood stabilizers, antidepressants, and I've got all this stuff going on going into fights. And
right.
the old me would just, I'd be charged up, ready to go. I'm looking across the cage and like, all right, come on, let's get after this, right? But then in the UFC, I was looking across at my fighters like, how you doing? I'll see you in a minute.
So after you won that title, you get a call from them, and you sign a 4-fight deal with them. Take
Yeah,
us through that. Yeah,
cried
take
my
us through that when you got the call from them. I think who'd you get the call from? Was
Joe
it
Silva.
Dana that you
Joe Silva.
got
Joe Silva.
Fertitta?
Yeah,
It was okay.
Joe Silva, and
Okay, Silva.
yeah, yeah, it was cool. I just cried my eyes out because remember I was
Yeah,
watching
it's your
this on
dream.
TV,
Exactly, it was your dream.
and I'm like, that's where I want to get to, right? And I never thought I could have that heart. I never thought I could make it that far. And here I am 10 years into it. And I originally thought I was going to get in there through the Ultimate Fighter when I was with Tap Out.
That's
We were,
Ultimate. I remember those days. Yep, the Ultimate
you know,
Fighter.
when I was
Yep.
with Tap Out, when the Ultimate Fighter first went on, the first season went through. The second season, I was put into the sequestered at the hotel at the Palace Station in Vegas, and doing that whole process. Everybody there was like, oh man, you're definitely getting on the show. Your personality and the way, oh man, everybody, even the people who are coming to serve me the food were like, man, you're gonna be funny. But the day before, when they send us back, they're like, hey, we're gonna send you back to be with your family for a little bit, and then you're gonna go away, and then you're gonna be filming.
Mm-hmm.
They sent me back, and I get a call like the next day. And it's like, hey man, I'm just coming right out with it. I forget which producer it was, because hey, I'm gonna come out right with it. You're off the show, and I'm like,
Ooh, ouch.
yeah. He goes, I'm not gonna be around the bush. You're off the show. I'm like, what? Wait, I thought I was just going back here. You're gonna do this. So no, it's just the conflict of interest. You being part of Tap Out and sponsoring the UFC. They don't want to deal with a conflict of interest, saying like, hey, he's got this kind of on the show because of this, and I'm like, all right, I get it, I understand, but that sucks. And all right, have a good show.
So now, where was Dana when all this was happening that you signed? I thought Dana at the time. Yeah, I know Joe Silva was still a part of it with the Petitas, but where was Dana? Was he with you when you signed, or where was he? Did you ever
Oh
get to
no,
meet
no,
him?
like Dana's got so many things going on. He's like Joe's directly with the fighters. Joe is with the fighters, and he's not there physically in person signing each fighter. They've got such a
Mm-hmm.
huge company and a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts. There are people that are extensions of them who are leading that part of the company that are doing these things. And so I didn't sit down, and when I did my UFC contract sign, and Dana's sitting there, and Joe Silva and Fertitas are there. A lot of these fighters probably haven't signed their contracts with any of them in the room. It's just been directors or representatives and so forth. But no, he wasn't there. It was Joe Silva. He's the one who orchestrated everything and made that work. And yeah, it's cool.
So you lose your debut on January 11,
Oh,
2010
my heart.
in
Yeah.
Fairfax, Virginia at UFC Fight Night 20 against the
Roy.
20-year-old sensation, Rory McDonald. Still fighting to this day. And
Hey,
the
all
and
right,
another
people I
promotion.
lost to.
Yeah,
The
and
people
another
I lost
and
in the
and
wait, go ahead.
GS and he's GSP's prodigy. So I mean
Yeah.
that's a good fighter to lose to. No,
Yeah.
I
So
wanted you to win.
Diego,
No offense, I wanted you to win that, but that's it. If anybody to lose, that's a good fighter to
yeah,
lose. Is prodigy.
yeah, no, very gifted kid. He's amazing. Good kid. Fuck, I thought I had him too. I dropped him with a straight right in the first round, hit him with a straight right, and just did not follow it up. It was out of the movie. It's like I hit him, and I was like, seeing myself. I don't know. It's just weird. I just didn't follow it up, and there was a fight I had way early on. I fought in a ring. It was I think it was called The Gathering. It was with Venom. No, one of the promotions. I got hit so many times in the head. I was with an earlier promotion, and I hit this guy so hard. Eric Deuce hit him with this right straight, and he ran into the corner, and I followed right in the corner, just started following up and bashing him out, and won the fight, right? And the fight gets stopped. I should have did that with Rory. I hit him with that right and just kind of walked in there and like did nothing. Let him grab my leg. I get put on the ground, get caught in the armbar, and they're like, fight's over. I'm like, fuck. It was my UFC debut. I could have won, and I snatched defeat from the jaws of victory.
Now, was that? Would you? Was that? I mean, he was 20 years old at the time, so that he had to be one of your. He had to be. You had to be one of his first fights, I'd say.
Oh
Wouldn't you
no.
think?
He fought a few fights before that for sure, and he definitely obviously did well in those fights because he got to the UFC and he won. But no, he had fights prior to me. He was definitely the youngest fighter I fought. But yeah, I'm cool with losing to, you know.
Yeah, that's not a bad fight to have. Your first fight in the UFC.
Yeah,
That's got to be like a welcome to the show.
that whole day though, that 24-hour period sucked because I lost. Took 10 years to get to my dream and I lost.
Yeah,
Then
true.
my buddy Zach, a really good friend of mine who really helped me get to the UFC financially, helping support me in the fighting and making it possible to get the right training and proper diet and all that stuff. He's like, hey, man, he just saw me just broken heart, crying. He's like, what can I do? What can I do? You know, what can we do, man? I don't want to see you like this. And I'm like, man, I just want to get home to my Great Danes, lay in bed, and freaking call it a night. I just want to get back to my. He makes a call, private jets on the runway, take a shuttle straight to the jet, hop on it, fly from Virginia to Orange County, and before we left, we're on our way, we're flying in, be there when we land. First message is, hey, your dog died. He's at
Oh,
this hospital,
brutal.
and the hospital where he's at, the animal care hospital where he's at, they knew me, and they're like, they left him on the slab. He's a Great Dane, so he takes up the whole freaking table, and they left him on there, and they closed the door, and they waited for me to get there, and I just, man, that sucked. That was a
Brutal.
very difficult time in my life.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
That had to be brutal.
that's life, man. Life has its ups and downs, and that definitely was a down. Definitely was a
I
down.
believe it. So then your next fight, you defeated. I hope I'm saying this right. Yoshiyuka Yoshida, May 8, 2010
Yoshida, yeah.
UFC 120 at UFC 113 by unanimous decision. Take
Yeah.
us through that fight, and what do you remember about that fight? Because obviously
A lot of things.
you must have
Things.
kicked his ass to win by unanimous decision.
Oh man, I beat the brakes off of that guy. Oh my gosh. Oh jeez. I felt so bad. This is a cool story. This is a really good story. There's a lot of funny things in this.
Shoot.
He doesn't speak English. Obviously Japanese, but he doesn't speak English. I was worried about this guy in particular because of his judo. He has amazing judo. He won the Triple Crown over there in Japan for judo, that is. He threw, what's his name? That's now in prison. I think he's in prison for beating Christy Mack, War Machine. So I hate to say it. Yeah, I was friends with War Machine.
I can't think of his name. I don't know who you're talking about.
So War Machine, I was like, man, he threw War Machine on his head, who I knew, and a friend. He threw another friend of mine on his head and just freaking just mauled him. And it was with his judo. So I was nervous for the fight, brought in some training partners that could help me with that, some Olympic alternates in judo. I mean, Greco-Roman wrestling to help negate his judo. And it worked very well, I got to say. But the first round, I remember I was going at it and I got in a bad position and I was struggling to get him back to my guard. Went for a submission and missed it. And just, I was gassed the fuck out. You know how you have your adrenaline dump? Well, I went a million miles an hour, had my adrenaline dump, and we're into like hearing the clack, clack, clack. And I had just put him I just finally put him between my freaking legs. And I grabbed him and I pulled him in tight, and my mouth is right next to his ear. I'm like, don't do anything for 10 seconds, and I won't do anything for 10 seconds. And if you look at the video, you could see me whispering in his ear.
I'll have to look at it. I'll have to go back at it.
He doesn't know English, but I guarantee you he knows, because he did absolutely nothing for 10 seconds. Round it. I'm all, good job. Hit him on the back, went over the corner, rested, went in there, and just beat him silly. I kept good position on him. Finished striking from the top. I got him in a really precarious position. It's actually on my Instagram. I had him wedged up against the fence, back pressure there, and had his leg on one side and then elbowing him in the head in the other. And I was like, man, I hit this guy with everything. I hit him with hard right hands. I hit him with knees. That guy had a serious, just an iron chin. He could take a shot. After the fight, when they take you in the back, they walk you out of the cage. I did my thing with Joe Rogan. Oh, that was the other thing, is getting ready for the fight. I just kept saying, all I want to do is talk to Joe Rogan.
Right.
All I want to do is talk to Joe Rogan. Because if you're talking to Joe Rogan, it means you won generally, right?
Generally, yeah.
Yeah, I was super tired. I got to talk to Joe, and Joe already knew what I was saying, and we had a laugh about it. I cried my eyes out because I was thinking about the road path taken to get to that moment was, the whole suicide and all the years, 10 years, and, losing my first fight and all this stuff, just all emotionally came out of me. I was just fucking lost it. Cried so hard. Cried 3 times in my life. Well, twice hard in my life, harder than that. But that was my mom and my dad passing. But then that was the next hardest time I ever cried in my life that hard. But it was winning that fight. But going back to walking out of the cage, they walk you in the back, and the first thing they do is they check you out with the doctor. They check your hands, they check your face. Hey, are you doing?
Right.
The finger, all that stuff. And I'm just hooting and hollering, sound like Woody Woodpecker. It's like, hoo, yeah, I won. I'm just so happy and so thrilled. I won. I'm like, man, I can't believe I accomplished my dream. I was like, fuck, it's amazing. And out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a guy sitting there with the towel over his head, and he's just sitting there, his head down, towel over his head. And I'm like hooting and hollering. I'm like looking. I'm like, oh, fuck. I shut my mouth. It's Yoshida. And you can see knuckles on his head. You can see the bruising and the swelling. And I just felt terrible because I'm not that kind of person.
Right.
And I could only imagine being him, being the flip side of it, just getting beat the hell up. And I know he had to. It's not like every fighter that goes in there works their ass off.
Yeah.
Every fighter in there, blood, sweat, and tears, and all the sacrifice, cutting weight, all of that crap. Every fighter that goes in there puts all that in there. And when you come up short, you feel like you let everybody down. Not just yourself, but you let everybody down. right?
Yeah.
And so he's got to have that feeling in there on top of the lumps and bruises and all that stuff. And I just felt terrible. And then you don't even speak the language in another country. I was like, fuck, I shut the hell up. I shut up. I told my cornerman, like, no more. It was just quiet. It was like dead silence. And the doctor just asking questions, writing. I'm like, see you later, bye. And walked out and then party.
There you go. So your next fight, then you face Daniel Roberts on October 23rd, 2010 at UFC 121. You would go on to lose the fight, but you walked on an anaconda choke and you lost it. So tell us about that fight. What happened through it to get us to that point to where you unfortunately lost?
Definitely one of the fights, this out of all of the fights, I'd say, is the one fight I truly wish I could have back, because that wasn't me in there at all. Not me at all. And it was in my hometown. And this one, Joe Silva, I'm coming off of that Yoshida fight with the story and how everything played out, and the turnaround and just the story of my life and
right,
that triumphant moment, right? He's like,
right,
Mike, he's like, Joker, because even they were calling me Joker on the. He's like, Joker, we're coming to Anaheim. Look at the roster. You pick your person.
mm-hmm.
And I'm like, cool. I'm like, Joe, I'm so thankful you want to put me on that roster. I was just thinking in my head, man, fighting in Anaheim, right in my backyard.
Yep.
And I still live in Irvine. I'm in Irvine right now.
That's right.
And I was like, oh, man, I'm going to get to fight in front of all my friends, my family, all my classmates. This is so cool. Dream come true, right? Man, just the mood stabilizers, the anti-anxiety pills, and all of that stuff, fighting on that stuff. It was absolutely ridiculous. I went into that fight, and my cornermen didn't even want to tell me. Well, they knew I was going to lose. I would give up training, and that is not me. I would give up in the stupidest situations in training. I would push myself, but then I got into a bad spot. I'd be like, tap. And they're like, what? What's wrong? What happened? I'm like, no, I'm just like, I'm in a bad spot.
Right.
It was just so uncharacteristic of who I am and my mentality and that mentality I have of just, I'm going to go through something, I'm going to push through something, nothing's going to stop me. That was not happening at all when I was training for that fight. That mentality was all gone, and it just felt on mute. Like my volume was not turned up, and went into that fight and just got in a bad spot. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in this anaconda. And, oh, it's getting really tight. Maybe I should do this. I'm not gonna do that. And tap tap tap, and I like stand up. Like, what did I just do? And I remember putting my hands over my head and walking through the crowd, going, what the fuck did I just do? That hurt. That hurt a lot. Gotta say, that really hurt. That's one I wish I had back.
So what do you think you could have done differently then to win? If you think you
fucking fought,
unlike you, huh?
Fucking fought. That's what I wish I could have done. I wish I could have. I wish I could have gave him what I gave Lapsley. I wish I would have gave him what I gave Casey Uscola. Like I went in there.
It was untypical of you, is what you're trying to say.
Oh,
Okay.
You talk to any one of my training partners, so I'll tell you, like, my kind of mentality, especially back then. Now I'm a lot. I am different now. How I do things. Back then, like, I was known for being very brutal and just going after things. I was a hard training partner. I wish I could take back some of my training partner sessions with people and realize I went too hard. Just uncharacteristic. That fight definitely was uncharacteristic for me.
So your final fight, what ended up being your final fight in UFC before you retired from MMA the first time, you faced Demarcus Johnson January 22nd, 2011 at UFC Fight Night 23.
Mark is a good dude.
You were injured early in that fight.
My back.
Take us through that fight, your final fight in the UFC. What was going on through your head, and did you honestly know it was going to be your last fight in the UFC?
I actually did. I did knew it was my last fight in the UFC. It just, it was kind of not as bad as the Roberts fight, but it was the same thing pretty much. Just fighting on all that stuff and just to. Sorry, I've got. Remember what I said with my time? It's very. I don't have a lot of it. This is one of the things. Owning your own company and having almost 80 employees, it's just nonstop. I've got 2 phones, just nonstop.
No worries. I got a couple more questions after this one anyway, so we're good.
What's that?
I got a couple more questions after this one, so we'll end it after that. So,
all right, bring it.
So tell us about that fight before we get into the other 2.
It was just like in the Roberts fight. Just I didn't give up as soon, and that's another like those UFC fights. A lot of them. McDonald, I was there for. Hitting him with that straight right and dropping him. Uncharacteristic of me not to follow up like that. Yoshida, I just was just piss and vinegar. That's what I was there. Roberts, definitely not me. And then DeMarquez, just not me. Just gave up. Got in any position. I was like, just. Then he got to a triangle on my back triangle. Man, that sucked. I felt my back pop, and I was like, get me out of here. It just sucks. I just wish I could take those fights back, but I'm cool with it. My life has played out the way it's played out, and I'm in a good spot now. I've found a good life after fighting. I feel terrible for some of the fighters out there that are still taking fights that shouldn't be taking fights. And it's because they don't have an identity outside of and after fighting. What are you going to do after fighting? And I wish more fighters thought about that, so you're not stuck in those positions. And I'm very happy with how my life's turned out. I found some things, found a new identity, CEO of a company that, almost 80 employees. Next year I'll have over 100 employees easily. And things are good. But
so what is this company that you own? What do you exactly do?
I have 2. One's one company's doing well, and that's executive protection, but I have another one that's just straight armed guards and executive protection, and that's MX2 global protection. But I do a lot of I have a armed guard company, so I got a large portion of Southern California, and just growing. I've got a lot of stuff on the future with the company, growing it. I've got a great partner. Actually, he's from the sheriff's department, one of the guys from that period of time when things were dark. Him out of the sheriff's department, he's my CFO and helped me run the company. And things cool. Life's different.
So
go ahead.
Okay. So you end up retiring from the UFC. What made you ultimately decide to want to fight again a year after that? Because it says here you came back in 2012. Yeah. So what made you want to get back into fighting?
That other side of me, that competitive, old, not angry, but just I'm not going out on a loss. I don't care who I fight. Sign me a fight. I got a hold of Brett, who had Bama, and I thought it was a cool idea. I'm like, you know what? I got a win in middleweight. I've got wins in welterweight, and now I want to get a win in lightweight. I want to get 3 wins in 3 different weight classes.
Yep, I saw that. Lightweight.
Yeah, Brett Roberts had Bama, an organization out over here, and 155 got an opponent, Mike Dizak, and it was it was Mike. And no, it wasn't Mike Dizak. That was the second fight into Bama. Oh fuck, what's his name? Yeah, I have to look at my own record.
Savant Young or Chris Leva?
Chris Leva. Savant Young, I want to kick him in his fucking head. And
Yeah.
Savant, if you're looking at this, if I see you, I will kick you in your fucking head.
Yeah, I see that. You won that fight.
I have bad blood with. That is the only person I have bad blood with, and I think people around him have told him never to be around me.
There you go.
No, it was Chris Leva.
Yeah, because that was your first fight, it looks like, here at Bellator.
I was 155, fought him, and did really well. I just didn't want to go out on a loss. And that was the reason going for that fight. The Savant Young fight was for the reason of what a lot of fighters are doing nowadays, is because you need that check. You need that money.
Right.
And I did that. And it was just, went in there. I had a busted arm, couldn't use it, and got caught with a left hook, got put out. And we didn't chirp at each other before the fight. No bad blood. He was an OG. I was an OG. Knew his head coach. We trained together. Everything's cool, right? We're going to compete. Well, he knocks me out into another fucking lifetime. He knocked me into a mummy. I was like stiff, knocked stiff and hit stiff and still stiff. And when you hit someone like that, like when I'm training and I've trained for so long, I know I've knocked out people like that. And you're like, right when you hit them, they're out, they're done. No one's home. It's a complete mannequin. John Mature, that you see that come up on things where Tank Abbott hits John Mature and he's stiff on the ground.
Yes, I remember that fight.
Yeah. And so I'm stiff like that, and he knows I'm out, and the referee is standing across from him, and the referee's running to come over and stop the fight, but he races over to me and hits me while I'm down when my head's on the mat. There's no room for your head to go anywhere. There's no, like when you get punched, your head can move around, right? But if there's a wall there and you get hit, it absorbs all the energy. And it broke my orbital, my eye socket, my cheekbone, and my jaw on that one stupid hit. And it's like, motherfucker.
Yeah, now I can see why you hated him.
We didn't talk shit. I didn't talk shit on you. You knew I was gone. You knew I was done. You knew I was out.
Right.
You were not coming back. You're not fighting for anything.
So because that's what it says. You were knocked out, clean cut by that hit, and then he went to go for another blow.
I don't care where I see that motherfucker. I'm going to come up and cheap shot him in the back of the head. I will kick him in the back of his fucking head. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
No, well, that was uncalled for. No, you're right.
That?
It was uncalled for because, like you said, you were already knocked out cold. Like this is saying, you were knocked. I didn't see the fight, but I believe you when it says you were knocked out cold, and he cold cocked you after you went down.
That was such a chicken shit move. Like I could understand maybe if we had like that Colby Covington Masvidal thing, where you just genuinely hate each other. You're talking all that shit, but everything was super respectful, super cool. Hey, hey, good luck in there. But and then that. It's like, motherfucker, I got 3 plates. I got titanium mesh under my eye. Had 2 plastic surgeons working on my face. I had incisions here, under my eyelid, in my mouth, fucking screws sticking out to this day because of this fucking idiot.
Did Bellator ever punish him for that uncalled blow? Or no?
Even if you do punish him, you can't take this way.
True. But they should have at least done something because they had to know by means that was unacceptable.
Yeah. But that goes back to that Kane thing, the Kane thing with that mentality of that heat of the moment, kind of like there's something so evil and you want to just, like for me, it's like, I want to get back.
No, I know you do.
That would be the Sylvia Young thing. But
so
I will not do anything.
Other than that, did you enjoy your time in Bellator? Because
Bellator was amazing.
Because I know Bellator is a competition to UFC. I'm not going to say. I know I'm not going to say they're sister to, like, how what's that one promotion that they bought? Another promotion UFC bought. I can't think of it. It's literally like their sister. It's like their sister show. I can't think of it.
It's like their feeder. It's their feeder.
Yeah.
You do. it's like set up for
Professional,
that.
PFL, because it's
Yeah,
on ESPN
yeah,
Plus with
yeah,
UFC. So
yeah.
PFL, they bought that. That's their
You
sister
know,
show.
everybody at Bellator was extremely amazing at their jobs, the way they treated fighters, the way they paid fighters, everything about what they did at Bellator. I loved everybody there.
Do you feel they'll beat out UFC one time because they're
No,
they're they're real competitors, aren't they? To the
no,
UFC?
no one's going to beat UFC. Can't beat it. Can't beat it. What organization is capable of throwing multiple events in a month on different continents and make money doing it? They
Sure.
could logistically, no one could do this. This is where people aren't understanding the business and how big and how strong UFC is. They're able to throw big shows on different continents, logistically make everything work, get everybody where they need to be, everything done,
Like
all the
Fight
systems,
Island. Remember that?
all,
Yeah.
all the processes. Think about what needs to be done just for one show. So people like Bellator, uh, PFL, those organizations, you ask them to do that in a week from now. You're going to throw a show in England. You're going to throw a show in a week after that. You're going to throw one in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be like, no, we can't do that because A, we don't have the money. B, we don't logistically, we don't have enough people. UFC does. Nobody's going to be able to compete with them. They are, I don't want to say never, but I don't see a lot of people that could compete with them. Their status and their pay-per-views and their views, yeah, they're going to be, Bellator is your biggest one. PFL, those are your biggest ones right there. But they're not going to overtake the UFC. But the fighters need to get smart and become a union. It's going to take a little while. Little by little, it's going to work. Look at what the NFL has done.
Yeah, I heard about that lawsuit before a while back ago.
Yeah. So
I
the
don't know if
fighters,
they ever cleared that. Do you know if
was
they
that
ever cleared? Do you know if they ever cleared that lawsuit? Because I think the
which one?
fighters were suing UFC or something.
Yeah, they sent something to me too, and I'm like, I don't care. It's it's I don't know what happened to it. I really don't.
I
I
don't
did
either.
get
I just
yeah,
know I heard about it like you did. Like I heard about it briefly. Something
yeah,
about the former fighters or whatever not getting
yeah,
compensation or whatever.
yeah. But fighters today, though, they really need to. Someone needs to come in and tell them and teach them. Here's something that the people don't talk about. Fighters don't say about the UFC what they did. The UFC did do some really cool things. When I was there, the UFC would fly you into conferences and bring in the top people in business, whether it be in marketing, whether it be in just in business in general, and they would have you sit and go through a lecture of what to do and prepare yourself for. And that there is what needs to be done more of too. Is I don't know if they're still doing that. I can't speak for what's going on right now, but all I know is when I was there, I did. That was something that was glaring to me that the UFC was doing. It's like, man, the UFC is bringing in the top CEOs and business people to help teach us how to make more money with our name and how to better ourselves in the future and in business, which is really cool. I hope they're still doing that now, and I think fighters need to get smarter and stop. You know, they got to get out of their own head and understand what is in after your fighting career. Because what's most careers end at? Do you know the average career span or when they're ending their careers?
I want to say 4 years.
You're probably what average retire age 30 maybe in fighting?
30 and fighting, yeah, 30 I'd say. Because of
Yeah.
getting beat up. Yeah.
Okay. What are you going to do 10 years after that? What are you going to do 15 years after that? Where are you going to make your money? How are you going to do it? Where are you
Right.
going to do it?
Right.
I'm now it's my last fight was 2013. I'm almost now 10 years from that part of my life and made a completely different life. And, I'm, basically a multi-million-dollar company now. Uh, and very thankful for the education I've had over the last like 3-4 years has come from, a couple very, very key people in my life now. And it's got me to where, and just, I wish more fighters had that knowledge and had that to be able to think ahead. So that's where I get bummed out because I saw what Chuck did taking that fight. I saw, he shouldn't have been taking that fight.
He
I saw
should.
what,
Yeah. Against
yeah,
Franklin. Yeah. I agree. He shouldn't have taken that fight. No.
there's just guys out there that just, man, it just breaks my heart. Like,
Same
what
with
do you do?
Couture. Even though
Yeah,
Couture still looks like he could do it, he shouldn't have taken that last fight. I forget who
yeah.
he lost to. I forget
But
who he fought, but he shouldn't have taken that fight. His
yeah,
last
no
fight.
matter where you're at in life, and if people take anything away from this, I could help them with in the ups and downs of life is just no matter where you're at on the food chain, because I do have to get going here soon. But no matter where you're at on the food chain, whether you're the ground floor employee or you're the CEO and owner of a company that's making those kind of figures, you're working. You're always working. You're busting your ass. And I see guys. I'll drive into some of my locations, and the guys will look at me like, "Oh man, I want to be. I want to be." I make everybody call me Michael, not Joker, which is a weird one for me. But I want to be Michael, or we'll say Joker for this part. I want to be him. He's a nice car.
Right.
He's out on the jet with the guys. He's out on this and that. It's like, no, dude, I want to be you. I want to have less responsibility. I want to have less this, less that. And unfortunately, I don't get that. These guys have time off and holidays and like I don't get any time off. I'm always working. I don't have a schedule. Nonstop, 24/7, 365. And that's my life. But I love my life. I love that I'm able to,
Do
provide
all
for,
that. Yeah.
yeah, it's cool.
So I know you gotta get going soon, so this will be my final question to you. It's a two-part
Great.
question because I'm curious about it. How'd you get the nickname Joker? Who gave it to you? And the other part of the question is, uh, if you ever, I know people have their dream fights that they always want in the UFC. What would be your dream fight that you would have wanted to see, either involving you or not involving you? So it's a two-part question there.
All right. So what would be my dream fight?
Yes.
Me and Stephen Hawking. Just no, that's a fucking joke. No, that was a joke. No. Dream fight. Fuck.
I know
Damn.
you were joking.
Unplug his little battery on his little wheelchair so he can't move around and take away his mobility. And then get him. Even then, I probably still couldn't pass his guard.
Probably not.
Like, see, this is terrible. See, this is why I'm called Joker. I'm always goofing around. I'm always making fun of these little light, things. Damn, you know what? Dream fights. You know what? This sounds corny, but I'll go back to like the GSP Silva thing. I would have liked to see that fight. That was a fight I would love to have seen. GSP is a freaking stud. He's a bad son of a gun.
He is.
That fight, yeah. And I missed Pride. Going back to the Pride thing, is I missed their crazy matchups.
Oh yeah, by far they had the greatest matchups.
Yeah, there's a lot of ultimate matchups. Have you seen what they're doing in Russia? I know we got to go, but Russia, they're doing like 5-on-5 and stuff like that. And there's like two guys versus a female. I'm dead serious. Nope. Look it up. It's crazy.
I'll have to, but I haven't seen that. No.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. I really appreciate Byron. I really appreciate you having me on here and taking the time to have me.
It was fun. I'll definitely keep in touch with you. It was fun. Before we head out, who gave you that name, No Joker?
Now it's just everybody calling me that. It wasn't
everybody.
Yeah, it's just goofing around. Always
Perfect.
and joking this, joking that, and then it's just Joker just kind of stuck.
Perfect. I couldn't have said anything better. I'm glad you were able to come on. I appreciate it. You're more than welcome to come on as many times as you want. I got your info. I'll stay in touch with you. And if you still know any fighters, bring them to me
right,
so I can have them on. If you know anybody. Perfect. Sure. But it was fun. So this concludes episode 87 with Michael Guymon, former UFC fighter. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. It's all there at Coffee Time with Byron. Anything else you would like to say, Michael, before we head out? The Joker, Guymon, anything else you would like to say?
No, just thanks for having me on, and have fun with life, everybody out there. And if there's anything, I don't know, give me a holler. If you have ups and downs and you don't know how to cope with stuff out there and need some help, need someone to talk to.
So give them where they can follow you then and contact you.
I'm not really that big on social media, but I'm on Instagram, Joker Guymon, Michael Guymon, Joker Guymon. And I don't have, what are the things out there like TikTok,
Twitter, Facebook.
I'm at Joker Guymon, at Joker Guymon on Twitter, and Joker Guymon on Instagram.
Perfect. It was fun. You have a good night. Get back to work. Don't upset your employees. Don't get upset your employees.
All right, brother.
All right, have a good night.